So, Aparna, it's a pleasure to have you here at the European University Institute. Let me ask you, with your wide experience in the UN system, what is the UN and what is UN Women specifically doing to promote women's empowerment around the world?
Well, first, thank you very much for having me here at the European Institute. It's a genuine pleasure for us, and it's been an eye-opening experience of a very high caliber, so thank you very much. As far as UN Women is concerned, the first thing we have to understand is that UN Women was created on the 1st of January 2011. It's given us a great platform from which to have a place at the table, which we didn't have before when different entities were doing the same work. So there is much strength to be had in the political mandate that created UN Women by the countries of the world, and as well there's much strength when you harmonize and reduce fragmentation in institutions. So you brought together many smaller offices, specifically who were doing disparate activity in this area, and you brought them up together under one roof. You raised the stature and the scope of this mandate. So I think structurally, one has to understand that UN Women, I think, has been a great victory for the voices that are fighting for gender.
Thank you. And in terms of the UN as an institution, what are the policies, the standards that it applies internally to ensure that it is a gender-just institution where women really have equal representation and equal power within the institution?
Well, it's a loaded question, because I think the journey to equality is still a journey, and I don't think we've arrived at our destination, even if it's the UN. The UN, however, is trying very hard to set an example and live up to the standards that it preaches, because it is asking governments to provide equality in the countries, and therefore it has an affirmative responsibility to do its best internally.
So we know that you were personally responsible for developing the accountability framework at the UN. Can you tell us a bit about what this accountability framework is?
Yes, the accountability framework is the first framework, unified, harmonized framework of performance standards. And the wonderful thing about it is not that it has been developed by consensus and is now adopted by 55 entities of the UN, 55 entities, departments, and offices to be exact, and they report on it annually. But also it's a typical case of where gender has led the way, because no other theme has succeeded in unifying the system to create an accountability framework that cuts across 6 functional areas, such as accountability, oversight, human and financial resources, knowledge packaging, capacity assessment, and results-based management. So you have 6 broad functional clusters which will apply to any institution. It doesn't matter what their mandate and work is. And within that, you have a set of 15 standards. And not only do you have standards, but you have a sliding scale of standards which are very particularly defined. And parity is one of them. Flexibility and organizational culture, for example, is another one. So every year, the organizations of the UN will have to report on whether they are below the standard, have met the standard, or exceed the standard, all of which are defined by this framework. And they have till 2017 to meet the standard. So in terms of enforcement, we report on this to the General Assembly through ECOSOC, the Economic and Social Council, but we also have a compact of the Secretary General with each of his Under-Secretary Generals, and reporting on this framework is a mandatory part of the compact. So we're trying to create the theory and we're trying to push the enforcement.
Thank you.